Man, I had to go outside and go for a walk before I did this video to cool off. And I'm still pissed off. I'm still pissed. This was straight up sabotage. Stephanie White, you are a bum. Aaliyah Boston, you are even more of a bum. You are a $6 million piece of garbage out there. Your ass can't make a layup. You refuse to pass the ball to Caitlin Clark. You stink. You stink. You've been intentionally not passing the ball to Caitlin Clark for the last 7-8 games. We've been watching and counting. I've been watching your ass not pass her the ball. You can't make a layup to save your life. You just as garbage at layup.
Welcome back. Wnba fans, something major is happening, and Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have made a significant move that has put the Indiana Fever and Stephanie White under serious attention. So, without wasting any time, let's get straight into today's video. What is the real reason Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham could leave the Indiana Fever and make a shocking move to the New York Liberty? Why would they consider such a huge change? Let's find out. As the arena descended into complete chaos, Caitlin Clark turned her back and walked straight away from the bench. After a heartbreaking 91-85 loss to the Dallas Wings, Caitlin Clark finally reached her breaking point and completely lost her composure. Stephanie White, the head coach, remained motionless on the sidelines, clearly stunned by the intense outburst happening right in front of her. This was more than just another painful road defeat against a team that had lost 8 of its previous 11 games. It was the dramatic result of a growing internal conflict that had been building behind closed doors for weeks and had the potential to completely destroy the entire situation. The entire business.
She mentioned she played a hell of a game, but this thing was 100% about Kelsey Mitchell, and I think it had everything to do with them seeing Caitlin Clark climbing that MVP ladder, and they said, hell no, we are sabotaging this, and that is exactly what happened. The Indiana Fever lose to a team in the Dallas Wings that lost 8 out of their last 11 games. You could thank Stephanie White, who wanted to make it all about Kelsey Mitchell. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated, man. I am disgusted with the Indiana Fever. I am disgusted. Stephanie White, get your bum ass in.
From the very first possession, it was impossible to ignore the serious problem developing on the court. White completely sidelined Clark as a major playmaker and designed the original play specifically for Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell was sent directly to the free throw line after Clark made a selfless bounce pass while carrying out the predetermined sequence. However, that single moment established a troubling pattern that would shape the entire evening. Instead of balancing the offensive attack and allowing Clark to control the flow of the game, the coaching staff remained focused on one specific strategy. Before long, it became clear to everyone watching that Clark was being pushed completely out of the central role and was no longer being given the freedom to drive the offense.
Bum of a coach. You are terrible. You are terrible. You mean to tell me the very first play of the game was ran for Kelsey Mitchell? Caitlin Clark threw her a bounce pass. Kelsey Mitchell went to turn the corner, got fouled, went to the free throw line. From that point on, every single play in the first half was for Kelsey Mitchell. Nobody else could establish a rhythm because you did nothing else for it.
Within the structure, it did not take long for analysts to notice an alarming tactic that appeared to be deliberately designed to keep the generational rookie away from the center of the action. With every outstanding performance, Clark continued building massive national momentum and was rapidly climbing the league's official MVP ladder. However, by directing almost everything through Mitchell at the expense of the team's overall flow, the offensive strategy used against Dallas appeared to be specifically designed to disrupt Clark's individual rhythm. The very chemistry and attacking dynamic that had made the Fever so dangerous was being slowly and methodically broken apart. With every offensive possession that passed, the tension on the hardwood became more obvious, and the pressure surrounding the team continued to grow.
By the time they actually got looks at the rim, Aaliyah Boston is trash. She does not set screens. You got people tackling Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Boston, big, soft, sorry ass, don't do nothing. She's a big, soft, sorry piece of if you ask me out there. Aaliyah Boston is ass. $6 million of ass juice out there. She ain't did nothing. Got dominated by Jessica Shepard. Aaliyah Boston, get your sorry ass in the trash too. Go on. Get your sorry ass in the...
The startling reality of what was happening on the floor became even clearer when the statistics from the first 2 quarters were examined. Indiana did not run a single pick and roll or ball screen specifically designed for Clark until the final 15 seconds of the second quarter. Consider how unbelievable it was to have one of the most explosive players in modern basketball standing almost motionless on the perimeter without even one off-ball screen being set for her until the third quarter. Instead of being placed in situations where she could create opportunities, attack the defense, and control the tempo, Clark was forced to watch the action from the outside while her scoring threat was almost completely neutralized. With every possession that passed, Clark's frustration continued to build, and it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to hide the anger that was starting to boil over.
Take a look at this. I'm glad. Look, Caitlin Clark is turning her back on Stephanie White. She's over it. Can we end this thing at the end of the season? Shout out to Kelsey. You played a good game. We're going to get into that. I want this thing broken up by the end of the season. You can't afford both. Pick one and let's move on. At this point, I'd rather y'all keep Kelsey, Stephanie, and AB together in Indiana, and let's let Caitlin go elsewhere. Can we go elsewhere, please? I just want to get the hell away from here. I want to get away from these weirdos. I want to get away from this sabotaging organization. I want to get away from everything. Take a look.
Stephanie White appeared completely unaware of the serious breakdown in team dynamics happening right in front of her. The head coach was repeatedly shown on camera giving Clark constant instructions and bothering her during important dead ball situations without offering any meaningful tactical support. Whenever the ball finally reached Clark's hands, White appeared visibly frustrated instead of adjusting the offense to create better opportunities for her star guard. As the game continued, the body language between the coach and the team's biggest stars became more negative and difficult to ignore. What was happening on the court revealed a major rift that could no longer be hidden behind careful and diplomatic comments during press conferences.
Look at her. Look at her. She don't want to hear it no more. Now look at Stephanie White when Caitlin Clark has the ball right here. She don't even want Caitlin to have the ball. She want Kelsey to have the ball. You see that reaction from the coach? You see that? They hate each other, and it's okay. I'll be glad when this thing is over. I will be glad when this thing is over. Get Caitlin Clark the hell away from this team. Get her the hell out of here, man. Caitlin Clark don't want nothing to do with Stephanie White, and Stephanie White don't want nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, which is fine. Can we stop this whole kumbaya thing, this fake thing? Stop standing up for Stephanie.
The front court dynamics and passing patterns made the execution on the court even more concerning. Aaliyah Boston, one of the team's key players and a major salary piece, repeatedly appeared unwilling to make simple handoffs with Clark on the perimeter. Observers noticed several moments when Boston would begin moving toward Clark as if she were about to initiate a play, only to suddenly change direction at the last second and send the ball directly to Mitchell instead. Throughout the game, this pattern continued to happen again and again. Opposing defenders were then able to aggressively crowd and trap Clark without worrying about an immediate response from the Fever offense, leaving her isolated, unable to build momentum, and struggling to find a clear path into the attack.
Y'all lost to a team that lost 8 out of their last 11 games. Caitlin Clark didn't play well. You shot 1 free throw. That shows me you had a lack of aggression. I felt like you checked out in the second quarter, to be honest. I watched you check out. They ran everything for Kelsey Mitchell. You came down the court. You wasn't even looking for no ball screens no more because you knew they wasn't coming. And you know once you pass the ball, you're never getting the ball back. You know that. If we all know it, you know it too. You know Aaliyah Boston don't give you the ball when you give it to her. You know when you go for the handoff with Aaliyah Boston, she's going to do this and then go the opposite way and give it to Kelsey. You know.
In screen and roll situations, Boston failed to provide enough physical protection, leaving Clark exposed to heavy defensive pressure. On the perimeter, Dallas defenders were constantly grabbing and bodying Clark, while Boston provided very little physical contact or resistance to help create separation. Clark repeatedly delivered high-percentage opportunities near the rim, but Boston struggled to finish those chances, making the situation even more frustrating. Indiana's lack of physical strength in the paint was also exposed as Dallas forward Jessica Shepard took control of the interior because the Fever simply could not match the level of physical presence needed to compete inside. The growing weakness in the paint became impossible to ignore as Dallas continued finding ways to take advantage of Indiana's lack of resistance around the basket.
They made it her a focal point, They made it a point to get her established. They made it a point to get Kelsey a rhythm. And when she got that rhythm, she kept it going. They never made it a point to get anybody else a rhythm. Sophie Cunningham, 0-4 from 3. By the time Sophie Cunningham got a look at the rim, the game was almost over. She had no rhythm. No rhythm. Monique Billings sucks. The biggest crock of dog shit for $800,000. I don't know how she's getting it.
By the middle of the second quarter, Clark's attitude had changed dramatically. She appeared to completely stop participating in the offensive flow. After realizing that the offensive sets were seemingly moving away from her, she stopped looking for screens that she felt were never going to come, and she appeared fully aware that once the ball left her hands, there was little chance it would come back to her. The excitement and endless energy that normally defined her game were replaced by a cold and deliberate sense of detachment. After recognizing what appeared to be happening around her, she seemed to mentally check out of the game. The disappointing results of this offensive approach were also reflected in the box score. Clark finished the evening shooting just 4 of 15 from the field, including 2 of 8 from beyond the arc, while recording 10 points, 9 assists, and 4 rebounds. Even more telling was the fact that she made only 1 free throw during the game, showing just how much the strategy appeared to reduce the aggressive style that normally defines her game when she tried to force the issue during the third quarter. Several quarters of limited involvement had completely disrupted her rhythm. Kelsey Mitchell, meanwhile, scored 37 points on 9 of 18 shooting and converted all 15 of her free throw attempts, producing impressive individual numbers. On the surface, casual viewers saw an outstanding scoring performance that helped keep the team competitive. However, those watching the larger picture could see how that production appeared to come at the expense of offensive balance and overall team chemistry. Several other important players were left without a consistent rhythm as the offensive strategy became heavily focused on feeding Mitchell and maintaining her individual scoring run. The entire roster appeared to suffer because of that narrow offensive focus. Sophie Cunningham, a reliable outside shooter, missed all 4 of her 3-point attempts after struggling to get into any consistent rhythm with the ball. By the time supporting players finally became involved late in the shot clock, the game was already beginning to slip away. Monique Billings and other important rotation players also struggled to make an impact, showing how badly the offensive structure can become disrupted when multiple players are reduced to spectators instead of active parts of the attack. The Dallas Wings, on the other hand, took full advantage of Indiana's growing problems. Wnba scored 32 points while repeatedly and confidently attacking the Fever's disorganized defensive rotations. Jessica Shepard also delivered a remarkable performance, finishing with 26 points and 8 rebounds after making 10 of 11 shots in the first half alone. Dallas played with clear togetherness and consistency, exposing a Fever roster that appeared to be struggling to stay connected despite Dallas entering the game having lost 8 of its previous 11 contests. Stephanie White's decision to approach Clark during a tense break late in the second half and deliver another round of sideline criticism became one of the most emotional moments of the night. The star guard then made a striking move. With her hands raised, Clark appeared to turn her back on her head coach and walked all the way toward the end of the bench. The body language suggested an obvious breakdown in communication and growing frustration, while her teammates watched and appeared fully aware that a serious line had been crossed. The sideline suddenly became quiet. What unfolded in that moment appeared to damage the organization's carefully maintained image of team unity. Despite questionable rotations and difficult coaching decisions, Clark had spent months defending her coaches during post-game press conferences and presenting herself as a complete professional. However, that image appeared to crack when she publicly chose not to engage with White in the aftermath. Both the coach and the franchise cornerstone seemed unable to completely hide the tension from the national cameras as the growing mistrust appeared to reach a breaking point. Reports and reactions surrounding the team have now raised questions about whether there is a deeper leadership problem within the organization. Stephanie White was brought in with the expectation of maximizing Clark's once-in-a-generation playmaking ability and helping turn a young roster into a serious championship contender. Instead, critics argue that rigid offensive decisions and questionable player management have gradually created distance between the coaching staff and one of the most valuable players in the sport. If a coaching system allows isolated statistics to become more important than the development and involvement of a generational talent, it can create serious questions about the organization's decision-making. The growing tension between the backcourt stars has also reached a point that may become difficult to sustain. Mitchell is unquestionably an accomplished scorer, but an offense can struggle when two dominant guards are being asked to operate within completely different philosophies. The continued structural tension surrounding the current hierarchy could eventually force the organization into an extremely difficult position. The front office will eventually have to choose between these conflicting offensive approaches when deciding the team's long-term future. The obvious lack of accountability in the starting frontcourt only makes the situation more serious. Boston's massive contract comes with expectations of a two-way level of performance that should match some of the league's top stars. Instead, the team's frontcourt performance has been seriously affected by her struggles to finish routine opportunities around the rim and consistently create strong physical screens. When a starting center repeatedly fails to take advantage of exceptional playmaking opportunities, the frustration can build quickly and eventually damage the entire offense. The painful loss to Dallas could become a major turning point that seriously affects Indiana's hopes of making the postseason. Losing an important game to a struggling opponent is already difficult enough, but losing while exposing major internal tension makes the situation even more damaging. Throughout the fourth quarter, the players' body language suggested that they were not functioning as one connected unit, but instead appeared to be operating almost completely on their own. If the coaching staff cannot maintain the trust and respect of the locker room, the entire season could begin falling apart right in front of them. Basketball fans around the world reacted strongly, with many calling for major changes from the top down. Videos breaking down every missed cut, every passing opportunity that appeared to be ignored, and the moment Clark walked away from White were quickly shared across social media. Many fans argued that one of the league's biggest stars was being held back by a flawed offensive structure. Ownership now faces growing public pressure to address the visible problems before they create lasting damage. Clark's visible exhaustion after the game also suggested that the situation was far more complicated than a single loss. She appeared to be dealing with the pressure of carrying enormous attention while also trying to operate inside an offensive system that critics believed was not maximizing her strengths. When a player feels that her own teammates are not consistently looking for her, performing under that level of constant attention can become extremely difficult. As Clark left the arena floor, the emotional weight of appearing isolated within her own offensive system was difficult to miss. Allowing a head coach to create distance between the organization and its franchise superstar could become a major mistake that changes the direction of the team for years. The front office is now facing a serious situation that may require quick and decisive action from ownership. If White cannot adjust her approach and place Clark's extraordinary playmaking ability at the center of the team's vision, difficult decisions about the coaching staff may eventually become unavoidable. After the dramatic collapse in Dallas, the team can no longer rely on the hope that everything will simply settle down on its own. The Indiana Fever have reached a critical point where the next major decision could shape the future of the franchise. If the organization fails to fully commit to building around Caitlin Clark's exceptional abilities with a coaching staff that understands how to use them, it risks losing one of the most valuable assets in modern basketball. What happened against Dallas was not simply one bad night. It appeared to be a clear warning that the current relationship between the team's key pieces may be seriously damaged. The final buzzer in Dallas represented much more than a 6-point loss in the standings. It exposed a franchise cornerstone who appeared increasingly frustrated with being pushed away from the center of the offense, a growing conflict between important personalities, and tactical decisions that raised serious questions. If Stephanie White and the Fever leadership ignore this warning, the impact could reach far beyond one game and potentially change the entire direction of the organization. The real conflict in Indiana may only be beginning, and whatever happens next could have enormous consequences for everyone involved.